Yes. Welcome to Satsang. Now, for those of you who are with me for the first time around the world, I'm really happy to share this space with you, and you will see that after a while, when we go deeper together, we will feel each other, we will feel a connection, we will feel a space that is beyond time and space. And the last satsangs we had, the last meditations we had, were very, very nourishing. And this is a very selfish thing that I'm doing here, because for me, to connect on that level is also for my being very nourishing. And for those of you who are new, it is possible to ask questions. I have Steve here who is monitoring any comments that you have, so you can ask anything or comment something, and if you would like it to be broadcasted, or if you like an answer. Doesn't mean I have all the answers, but maybe I can, see what comes up when I receive the question, and Steve will read it and I will repeat it, because apparently the microphone is not good enough to hear him. So I know there's a few people from Germany where it's 11 o'clock in the morning, and here it's 7 o'clock in the evening, and it has become quite cold. I heard that in southern Australia there has been 0.5 meter of snow last night, which is quite amazing. So we're moving into winter, and many of you from Europe are moving into spring. And that's kind of quite significant, that we tend to kind of lean towards one side and not even becoming aware that there's another side. And on the planet it is always like this. Normally I would be traveling and travel from autumn to spring, because I would be in Japan now. And in Japan the cherry blossoms just finished. So it's kind of significant, because it includes, when we zoom out a little bit, when we go more into the space that we are, rather than being too much identified with our separate sense of self, we perhaps can include all the opposites, and can include, as we shared last week already, we can include the darkness and the light and the darkness, and the good and the bad, and the right and the wrong, and all these so-called dualities that give us a sense of separation, where when we zoom out a little bit, which means when we go in, we don't find anything like that. Now, today is the 1st of May, and for me it's quite a strong day, because today, 6 years ago, my beloved Nora went to the hospital, and we didn't know what was happening. And of course nobody would have thought that within 18 days she passes away and leaves her body. So I didn't even, intended to think of it, but it came quite strongly today. And it's a good reminder for me, and probably for everyone, that you could ask yourself a question around your dear friends, or your lovers, or your family, or anyone that's close to you. And ask yourself, well, does it feel complete? Have you loved enough? That was my inner question. Well, have I loved enough in this life? And I feel incredibly grateful to say yes. It's I think on the dimension of love, so many I have loved enough. So on that level, I can say everything else, everything that happens now is a bonus. And if we can say that every moment now is a bonus, it doesn't mean my personality doesn't go through ups and downs and happiness and sadness and all that continues. But there's something deeper that I think everybody is seeking, that has lodged itself in the being. And perhaps just as you're sitting with me here, you can drop into that place. It's a place that we will touch later in the meditation, because that's, in my view, the only purpose of meditation, is to find this natural opening to a dimension that we often forget because it's not an object. Our mind, our personality is so object-oriented, and who we are, may sound strange for you, for the new people, but if we really look, who we are is not an object. It is a space of awareness, a space that is aware of all experience. And for the mind this is inconceivable, because mind only lives attaching itself to objects or resisting objects, and thoughts are objects, feelings are objects, emotions are objects, bodies are objects. That's what we usually refer to when we say I. And when we go deeper, perhaps we realize, wow, all that what I thought I am is kind of different dimensions of a story, and everybody has a different story, which is beautiful and or intense or challenging, and yet that which is aware, that real I, that real self, is always here. And the strange thing is we can never talk about it, actually. Even though I talk about it in every satsang, we can never really pinpoint it, because how can you pinpoint the empty sky? It's vast, it's unknown, it's infinite, it's eternal, it is without beginning or end, and that's who we are. So on that level I could say, also my beloved Nura never got sick. She's still here. So before the satsang every evening here, I offer the light of a candle. This is kind of like a little bit of a symbolic gesture, and I would like to offer the light of the candle tonight to love, and to a different kind of love than what we normally call love, which is more the romantic attachment or the romantic overflow of energy or the romantic sharing. On a deeper level, love is space. Love is an opening. Love is existence. Love is the divine. This word love has been very much kind of used in so many different ways, and very often people don't even know what they talk about. Love is the depth of our being. Love is what you see when when you look into somebody's eyes for longer than a second or two. Love is what you see more easily what you see in an animal, and if you look into the eyes of your dog, your cat, your horse, you actually don't see anybody. You see kind of like it looks like an empty look, and the empty look is at the same time full of love. So I'd like to kind of follow how we've been having the satsangs in the last weeks, that we begin with a little sitting, maybe around 20 minutes of just silent sitting with not much instructions, just allowing yourself to be here. The only instruction is allow everything to be as it is. Allow your mind, if the thoughts are there, don't worry about the thoughts, let them come, let them go. Feelings, let them come, let them go. Body may have sensations, let them come, let them go. It's like mind will have opinions, let them come, let them go. There is no goal in meditation, so some people meditate to be more peaceful, and I think it's a bit of a misunderstanding, because you are peace, and meditation reveals what you already are. When you drop the two sides that keep us in division, one is the resistance. Resistance is a fantastic way to hold on to your own personality, because whatever we resist persists. So if I can resist anything in me or in somebody, I exist separate from the other, or separate from my own experience. And the other side is attachment. It's like, I don't want to let go. I hold on to a thought, I hold on to a feeling, I hold on to an emotion, I hold on to being right and the other wrong, or being wrong and the other right. Now when we're just sitting, nothing of this has any life energy, because wherever we put our attention is where our life flows, where our energy flows. So if we don't put our attention onto anything that arises, we can let anything arise. And it may reveal what I'm talking about right now. It may reveal a more peaceful climate, a more relaxed climate, a more letting go, a more depth. So be curious. If you don't have any expectations, drop all expectations. We're just here. The only thing is, it's helpful to sit with your spine upright so that we stay awake, because letting everything be as it is happens every evening before we go to sleep. You forget all your worries and stories and attachments and identifications. Otherwise, you couldn't sleep. So it's very similar, just that in meditation there is this silent flame of awareness, of consciousness, of the witness awake. So you can close your eyes and we will just sit for about 20 minutes without going anywhere. We're just being here. as we sitting here, just very consciously feel into that space we share. There may be many different things arising and disappearing, but there's a space. We share. It's like a peace, a peacefulness, a silence, and it is not generated, it is not created, it is not manufactured, it is what appears when we are still. And perhaps you may notice that just that stillness begins to naturally relax any tensions we may hold in the body. They become unimportant. They are just body sensations that have space. And from that depth inside, just to kind of become aware of these two different dimensions of living, we can take a deeper breath and just like surfacing from the depths of the ocean, we can become aware of the body. The body is, of course, individual and separate from other bodies. And as we come back with our attention in the body, it's almost like the ocean becomes aware that there are waves on the surface. And yet the waves are part of the ocean. So you can take a deeper breath. And maybe you want to just move a hand or a foot and just noticing where there's a movement that is possible. While we are still aware of the space. So if we ask ourselves who is moving, maybe it is moving, space is moving. And another deep breath and just finding a moment to open your eyes to a completely new moment here. And for a moment, let your eyes be empty. You may notice that when we open the eyes, there's a lot of energy moving. Usually we lose a lot of energy through the eyes. But maybe as the eyes kind of relax, the energy flow can be reversed. It can absorb whatever the eyes perceive and receive it inside. And then you may notice that the space is still there. And this is one of the 112 meditation techniques that are the base for all other meditations. There's a beautiful book called Vigyambhara Tantra, or the Book of Secrets, where Osho speaks about every single meditation technique which in a way points or helps the mind to create a copy of the experience of awakened consciousness. That may sound strange, but this is how I understand it. Since our deepest being is space and empty, our experience in the body-mind can somehow copy the depths of nobodiness. And then when it suddenly happens, when the realization happens that who I am is actually not anything that I can experience, who I am is the background of all experience, it suddenly makes sense. Now, I want to invite you, if you have any questions that you want to ask, or any comment about what meditation, just a little bit of sitting that we just had, what it provokes in you, or what you begin to understand, or what you begin to experience, or if it's challenging, you're very welcome. Steve has his eyes open, he's looking at his computer, and see if there's any questions or comments that you would like to be addressed here. And of course I don't have all the logical answers. All I can do is help us or support us to create this bridge between mind and no mind. For many years I heard Osho talk about no mind, and I totally misunderstood, because I always thought in no mind I'm supposed to have no thoughts, otherwise I'm not in no mind. And yet in reality we are always in no mind, because every thought and experience appears in no mind. That's who we are. I'm looking at Steve and see if there's any question. Now maybe it's a very good sign that there's no question, because we all kind of dive deeper than the mental story. But you know, we're also living in this world, and we're also kind of living in a very unique situation in the moment, as most of us are in lockdown, and it provokes many things, especially I think for many people they have to face a certain level of loneliness or isolation, or I also, became aware that many people actually touch a certain level of depression, and suffering, because human beings are social beings. So when we deprive the social interaction, it's challenging for some of us. Not so much for the meditators, because the meditators consciously choose to take time and moments to retreat from the busyness of the mind and the day-to-day life, which is more and more demanding, and move into a personal isolation. But very often, if we look into society, if we look into how most people live, there is a tremendous fear of the inner emptiness, a tremendous fear that maybe whoever I thought or whatever I felt is so important in my life is just a fleeting experience that leaves a deeper place of emptiness. Now, as meditators, we have the luxury to go there. Consciously. But for many people it's the worst thing. It's like we do everything to fill the emptiness. To fill the emptiness with story, with complaint, with judgment, with arguing, with opinions, with gossip, with getting more interested what other people do or think, becoming very dependent on other people's opinions, just not to feel the emptiness. And yet, as we become friends with emptiness, we just want to sit. Here comes Steve. Okay, come here. Hi.
Hello.
Majestic mountain. Mm-hmm. This is kind of the view from Steve's house.
It is the view from my house.
Did you make this? Did you?
I did the photo.
You did the photo.
But I'm here to share a poem.
Okay, great.
Poem.
You ready for a poem?
So before I read the poem, this poem is from a guy named Curly that I met 3 weeks ago. And I just met him by chance, or not by chance. He's a 72-year-old guy. And a little bit about his story to set the scene for this poem. When he was born, 2 days after he was born in Sydney, his mother sold him for £1.50.
She sold him for £1.50.
Or something like that, £5. She needed money for something. And then he was sold to somebody, into a family where these people used him to work him. But what happened to him every single day is that he got beaten. And he shared me some of his story. And he'd go to school, he'd come back, he did something wrong. He'd always do something wrong because there was no right. And then he'd have to put his hands on the top of the fence, and then he'd get lashed, right? And if he let go of his hands, then he'd get a double lashing, right? So he was in this environment, and and you would think it would just destroy this guy, right? But this guy was, incredible. I'll tell you how he was. But then at 14, he left the house. He just one day he packed his stuff and took off. He ended up, I think, in Central Coast somewhere, living in a car that was on the side of the road that was vacant, abandoned car. He lived out of the car. He didn't have money to rent anything. He then, to make money, he had to do what he had to do, and he was tough. He was a tough guy, and I think there was lots of fights. He was stealing. I don't know how much to share. He doesn't know I'm talking about him. So I won't say too much more. But just to say, he had a very rough upbringing. And then he had time where he had to go to jail. And he was told he would never amount to anything and he would end up in jail. And however, I met this guy and I went for a motorbike ride and I ended up in Tyalgum, about a half hour from my place. And I just was ordering a coffee and then he's standing there and we just started talking. And I could feel him and he was just in such peace. And his heart was, I could just feel his vibration. He was a very, very nice guy, very beautiful guy. And then he was then working outside at this general store, and we just started talking. And then he just tells me, that he's a writer. He said he couldn't read or write till he was 54.
Wow.
And then he said he's a writer, and then he shared a bit of what he was writing, and then he recited this poem to me, and I was just so touched, about this mountain, which is here in this Byron Bay area. But I could tell he was, I just said to him, I said, Curly, after this is like an hour, we talked. I said, Curly, what's the secret? How did you come out of this without such trauma, without such, wanting to kill everybody? How can you be in the state that you're in? And he just said, it was written on my heel.
That's a good expression.
Yeah. He said it was just my destiny to go through this stuff and to come out, and he's really a very, very, and he's tough. He's got a Harley. He's got tattoos. He's physically a tough guy, but he's just so right there, and he just gets it. And he just said it was my destiny, to come through it, and he has no regrets.
So he obviously kind of discovered that which can never be hurt, that which can never be abused, that which can never be kind of broken.
And he said the physical beatings, he just disconnected from it. He said he never cried, So, so this is his first public works. So we took his poem and we put it on a photo. And that's Willammin, the mountain here in Byron Bay, near Byron Bay. The poem's about the mountain. It's called Majestic Mountain by Curly R.B. Shedrick. It goes like this. You stand the valley center, a solid core of what has been. In earth's bowels you were conceived. Your greatness touches the sky. First witness to each new day's birth, life-giving sun touches your peak, then filters down steep treed slopes to rest at valley deep. Towering peak where clouds gently rest, clouds once pierced, you seem to weep. Life-giving waters filled your creeks, down through misty gullies green with moss. Your name has changed with time, Ancient mariners named you warning. Your custodians sang their songs of Cloudcatcher and where you belonged. Thank you, Curly.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I think that's a very, very important or beautiful story, especially for those of us who had kind of difficulties, difficult childhoods, or challenging moments, or or if we tend to kind of love our drama. If we are if I hear your story or the story of this beautiful man, it makes it so obvious that it doesn't matter what the situation is. There's always that which can never be touched. No? And it used to be only, looked like it's only available to great masters like, Jesus or Buddha or Lao Tzu, but it's available for everyone. It's always here. And I think now we're coming into a time, especially I think that, there's a benefit of this lockdown around the world. Many, many benefits. And if I look at it from that place, I met somebody today who told me that a couple friend who did the Tantra course with me, they are stuck in India, in New Delhi. And New Delhi was the most polluted city pretty much in the world. You couldn't see anything. And you couldn't really breathe. And with the lockdown, suddenly the reality, I think it's a very symbolic thing, the reality of existence is revealed. Delhi has blue skies and they see the mountains, the Himalayas from New Delhi. It has never happened, since the motor car has been invented. And suddenly the space, which means the consciousness, which is space, becomes visible. I really like that as a metaphor. Wow, everything stops. The useless activity of the mind that kind of keeps us busy has to slow down because there's not much to do in lockdown, except for workaholics like me. And then the water is purified, the rivers get clean. Venice has for the first time clear water. Apparently the dolphins are swimming around Venice, which hasn't happened for years and years and years. So life in its more core, no, I have to say it differently. The core of emptiness has a new opening for life to come in a completely new way. And I'm really curious how we all kind of evolve from here, because it's an incredible chance. If you listen to the news and to the politicians and to all, that is just to fuel the separation and the nonsense, but it is really minor. Because there's such a big happening, and I think none of us knows what's actually really going on in this. But something beautiful is coming out of this, I feel. And it's in a way it's the same story. He had this intense upbringing, and if you try to make a person out of it, out of the idea that you got sold after 2 days for £1.50, that's kind of, it can give you a very big belief that you're not worth anything. But obviously, life wanted him to experience that, to understand something that is beyond worth, which is such a miracle. And then he comes up with fantastic writing. Thank you, that's fantastic.
Thank you.
And I think this is good news for, I don't know who is listening to this satsang or who is with us. Maybe some of you are sick or have the virus, or maybe you're suffering because you have money problems, because that is a big, big issue for many who lost their job in in this crisis, or any crisis you may be in. It's, I think, a good possibility to ask, well, who or what is experiencing the crisis? And when you bring your attention to that, you're invariably stumbling upon a space, stumbling upon a climate that is not affected. And it's, when I say this, is not to deny our suffering. It's not to deny the pain that we may experience or the anxiety. But when we just understand that behind all of this is, in religion they call it God, the divine. But in spirituality we call it consciousness or awareness. But all these words are basically just an indication for that who we truly are. And I often hear myself say, when I watch my own mind, because we all have a mind, we all have these thoughts, and we have all these positive and negative thoughts, and we try to kind of stay in elevated emotions because it feels so much better. We may find that all thoughts are more or less lies. They are interpretation of a reality that can never be interpreted. And it gets more intense. I think many of us, I include myself here, we can get very affected by people's opinions. And if we start with ourselves, even our own opinion about anybody is a complete lie. How can I know anyone in their essence? How can I know whether the action that I see somebody do is good or bad, is right or wrong? How can I know? My conclusion is that all my thoughts about anything are a relative or absolute lie. And that, it's kind of shocking, because we keep defining ourselves through our opinions about people, about ourselves too. Even your thoughts about yourself, whether you're good enough or not good enough, whether you don't have money and you're gonna live the rest of your life as a street bum because your job is lost. These are the fears, but you don't know. All these thoughts that are fueled by that general fear are lies. Please don't believe them. They're just kind of fleeting clouds. And the strange thing, and I love this story that Steve shared with us, the strange thing is when we get confronted with the biggest and the strongest lie, which is kind of being punished for who we are, or beaten up, or violently misused, it may be for some people a fantastic way to realize what cannot be abused. But it's also dangerous because it then destroys our victim identification. And many of us prefer to be a victim than to be nobody. I never heard myself say this. Yeah. I mean, it's, for the mind it's not kind of a great alternative. No? Either I'm a victim or a nobody. Well, I would say it's much better to be a nobody. That cancels everything else too. That means then also we don't need to be a tyrant. We don't need to be in control. We don't need to kind of, argue about about things that where you feel something is wrong with me or whatever. Steve is giving me a sign. Ishka, darling. Ishka, I've been reading your WeChat, not WeChat, Facebook messages, and you're really very much with me in my heart, so tell me.
I'm out of my mind in a lot of present times.
Lucky.
But it's actually the opposite of no mind.
Yes.
I'm open to making friends with my overly busy and egoic mind.
You're open to make friends with your overly busy and egoic mind. Well, what I hear here is a subtle or not so subtle interpretation about a phenomenon that's called thoughts and mind, and you make it yours, and then you call it ego, and that feels kind of already opinionated, whether it's wrong or right. Have you ever stood under a waterfall, dear Ishka? In Minion Falls, for example. And when after it rained, and you stand under a waterfall, and it sounds like your mind, and not just yours, I think many of our minds are really like the water crushing from a big height onto your head, onto your body. And can you let all these egoic or non-egoic, horrible or good thoughts just fall on you? And I know probably you're going to roll your eyes when I ask that question. Who or what is experiencing that waterfall? And don't believe any answer, because any answer is not the right answer. And it's kind of the help for me, and of course it's not for everyone, but the help for me to even speak about it is really the principles of quantum physics, which I came across much later than the recognition of who I am as a glimpse. That, Einstein already talked about it, that the field governs the particle. And all our attention as human beings is not, or as human becomings, is on the particle. And the particle is mind, is thought. The particle is feelings, the particle is the body, the particle is our personality, the particle is our story. Where's the field? The field is the space in which it all happens. And the amazing thing, and I really, Ishka, I know you since a long time, and you're a beautiful being, I love you dearly. What would happen if you put your attention on the space in which your mind and everybody else's mind is happening? In quantum physics, when our attention is on the particle, which means when the particle gets observed, it appears as particle. That's a strange thing. And when we take away the attention from the particle, it's not a particle anymore, it's a wave, it's a field, it's a space. This is what physicists have found. It's incredible. It's so profound and so real. Now, it's the same thing when we put our attention, when you put your attention on the waterfall of your thoughts and on that illusory label called ego, then that exists. And there is a challenge in this, to let it completely be and turn our attention to the space. Now that's difficult because the space is not an object, and our attention is usually only focused on objects. It only knows objects because there's attention that can hit an object. And it took me years to understand what Osho indicated what awakening is, because it felt so simple. When you see in meditation we are watching, there is a space that watches every object. It watches the mind, it watches the body, it watches the feelings, it watches the emotions, it watches the story. And with all what we watch, we also, even worse, identify with it. Awakening, even if it's just a glimpse, is a moment where that which is aware, that which watches, becomes aware of the watcher rather than of the object. Now that's a strange thing, because emptiness becomes aware of itself. Space becomes aware of itself. Then we completely disappear as an object and we are just space. But the amazing thing is that this what looks empty is actually the source of all creation. And in our human existence, it's the source from where all our gifts, and we are all amazingly gifted, they arise from here. I have a dear friend who, for some reason, she's very gifted, she's very intelligent, she has a lot of wonderful qualities, but her identity is, I don't get it together, I need to make more money, I need to have a car, I need to have a house, I need, but I don't get it together. Which means the attention is on that which is not. And yet, there are all these talents and all these gifts and all this amazing capacity to create that is not personal, that is existence itself living through us as creative energy. That source is empty, or appears like emptiness. And that's, nowadays there's a lot of workshops around creating your own reality, which is, you can come from an egoic place and then it's totally nonsense. But that which we really are is already the creator, the divine, the infinite, the source, the potential, whatever you call it. And when we get out of the way, then it can flow through us. But we need to get out of the way. And that's what meditation is. So, dear Ishka, in your case, get out of the way so that your mind can be a waterfall and nourish something that is way beyond itself. And darling, you need to. I read a lot about your loneliness and isolation. And who is lonely? It is our habitual idea that we are missing something. I have that too sometimes, so I can relate to that. Now, why do you love? I know you love the beach. You go often to the beach with your little dog. Why do you love it so much? Because the beach and the ocean and the sky is empty. It's vast. It's infinite. It has no beginning, no end. It is just there, and it reflects your own being. That's why everybody loves to go for a beach walk. So next time you go for a beach walk, don't see it as something external. It's in you. It's always in you. The sunrise is in you. Every experience is in you. You want a proof? Touch the place where you're sitting. Just touch it. Where does the touch happen? In the couch or in you? Hear the night animals here. Where does the hearing happen? In the animals or in you? In you. Feel with your hands. Where does the feeling happening? That what you touch or in you? Even if you taste or smell, it happens in you. Whatever you see with your open eyes. You may look at a screen and see Rahasya, but where is Rahasya happening? Where is the seeing happening? Not in Rahasya, in you. Everything happens in you. So you cannot be such a small being. Does that make any sense? I'm happy at least one is here that nods, our Steve.
Let me see what they're saying.
Yeah.
One more question.
One more question, okay.
There's a few more, but this one's a good
Yeah. Okay, Ishka, anyway, I send you many, many blessings. Yes.
Kate Kosh.
Oh, Kate.
She says, Dear Rahasya,
Yes.
how can I sustain love when I feel the pain of love not being reciprocated by my closest one? rightly or wrongly perceived.
Okay, the very idea to sustain love is a big misunderstanding. How can you sustain something that you are? Now, I have a hunch that what you call love is something else. Can you read the question one more time?
How can I sustain love when I feel the pain of love not being reciprocated by my closest one?
Yeah.
Rightly or wrongly perceived.
Yes. You see, that love that we are looking for, or that you are looking for, is kind of what we perceive as love from our survival place as a little kid. No? We are missing the cuddles. We are missing we are missing the closeness, the physical closeness. We are missing the romantic approval. We are missing all these starry-eyed romantic pieces that we call love. And I say we because I count myself in that too. I have moments where I feel, my God, I'm totally separate from love. I don't feel anything. Because I confuse the romantic attachment with the space that I am. So that's why it's called falling in love. So, my dear Kate, obviously you fall, but you don't fall in love, you fall out of love, into expectations, into hopes, into wanting somebody to fill an emptiness that you don't want to feel. It's not wrong, most of us do this. I do this too. But it's a misunderstanding. And it's not your business. Forgive me, that may sound hard, but it's not your business if somebody loves you or not. Your business is whatever you want from somebody, give it. You are love, so give it. Nobody wants to kind of be asked, love me, love me, love me. And it's too much. Isn't it? If you get asked, Steve, love me, love me, love me, you escape.
It scares me.
It scares you, yeah? No? And it's too much. And then, of course, the person that you love so much kind of retreats, and you think, oh, he doesn't love me. I understand that. It's very hurtful. So you talk about pain. Okay, here's what you do with the pain. The focus of your pain is on the apparent source, which is outside of you, in that person that doesn't give you the love back. Turn around. Meet the pain. Be the pain. Make space for the pain. Let it break your heart open. Let it open you so deeply that you get curious what is opening behind the broken heart. And yes, it will first appear as a deep darkness and void. Take courage to drown in darkness. There may be many tears. There may be deep despair, which is our personality. But on the other hand, it will open you to that which you've been longing for, which is always here. That actually you are the love that you're seeking. Now that sounds very advanced, and I'm telling you this, and I'm telling myself this, so don't misunderstand. I'm you. I'm in the same boat. Everyone is. Even the greatest masters are there. It's just the attention is a little bit different. The attention in this case is, I would say, perhaps you find a level of gratitude that the guy appears not to love you. I say appears because my sense is he deeply loves you. He just feels too overwhelmed by a demand because he feels helpless. I cannot fill you. Nobody can fill you. Does that make any sense? Am I too hard on you? Yeah.
She wants me to let you know it's Radha.
Radha.
She said, let you know it's Radha.
Oh, Radha. Radha. Nice to hear. I mean, it's such an important question, you know. It's a core question for all of us who love relationship. No. We have made relationship a deal, and it's not a deal. No.
She says, absolutely, it makes sense.
Oh, thank you.
I love you.
I love you too. That's you know. Now I'm getting romantic because I feel a lot of love when I'm received. I feel gratitude. Yeah. So, you know, keep loving. Don't wallow in your pain. Just kind of let the pain open you. What can we do? Okay. Now, I actually wanted to end this satsang with Atisha's meditation, but I think it will take a little bit too long for us today. Because remember in the last... why not? We have a short form. No? Let's have a short form, because Atisha is very, very dear to my heart. That meditation indicates a very simple and very beautiful way to use the heart and transform suffering. It looks like a great strategy, it looks like a lot of doing, but it's not. Should we try this? Close your eyes. And I'm going to be a little bit fast today, but I think the essence you will still get. Bring your attention to the heart. And it doesn't matter, maybe the heart aches. I went through quite some heartache actually the whole day. I can, I tell myself a story about it, but maybe the story is not important. So bring your whole attention to the middle of your chest to feel your heart. And the heart is often connected with love or pain or feeling or compassion. Now, as I spoke a lot about emptiness and space today, you can use your imagination. Just imagine that your heart is actually not an object, but a space, an opening. And as you have been meditating on the heart a few times, you may remember or notice that the experience in the middle of your chest has different dimensions. On the surface it's the feeling side of the being. That's why We say, my heart aches. We even feel physical pain here. Or my heart is closed. No, it cannot be closed, but it appears closed. And then when we go deeper in, we find an opening that is almost like a channel that doesn't have an end. So you can imagine that as you enter the heart, you flow through the different layers of the heart, which have a story, which are connected to beliefs, which have ideals and shoulds and should nots, and which have a feeling side. And deeper than that, an empty space. And when we enter the heart into the very core, we actually reach the inner sky, reach an infinite space. If you want to have a longer version of this meditation, you can go back into the last satsang from last week or 3 weeks before and listen to the longer version. Now today, a reminder, we can invite into that heart, into that open space, any suffering that we are aware of inside of us. So you can try that right now. You know, if you're afraid of loneliness or the COVID-19 virus or isolation or depression or anger or jealousy or any suffering, you can use your imagination, allow it to ride on the in-breath into the heart, flow through the heart, and dissolve in emptiness. And the out-breath can carry the blessings of peace, of silence, of love, of care, of tenderness, back into the body-mind. Occupying those places that were occupied by suffering before. So try this. Any shame, any envy, any guilt, any unworthiness, any panic of survival because you don't have a job, let it ride on the in-breath, flow through the heart, and dissolve in the empty sky. And the out-breath can carry the blessings of peace, of healing, of silence, of love, back into the body-mind. So with each in-breath, not rejecting, not pushing away, but inviting, opening all your vessels, opening your heart and inviting it into the empty sky. And here it all dissolves naturally, like clouds dissolve on a sunny day, and reveal that the sky is always here. And the out-breath can carry the blessings of compassion, of healing, of love, of peace. Back into your own body-mind. Now, in the depths of the heart, in the empty sky, there is only one sky. Reminds me of an Osho song, there's only one sky to fly in. That recognition can allow us to extend the heart to friends and to family and to people close to us. So you can invite their suffering, and you will see it's not so personal, into your heart. Let it flow through the heart. Don't hold it in your system. Let it flow through. and dissolve in the empty sky. It's a natural phenomenon. In the out-breath, carrying the blessings of healing, of peace, of silence, of love, back to the friends and family. Absorbing any suffering, any fear, any anxiety, any loneliness, anything that your friends and family may suffer from. Just allow it in your heart. Let it flow through the heart. It will not stick anywhere. It just flows through and dissolves in the empty sky. And the out-breath, a breath of blessings, of healing, of compassion, of love. Back to the friends and family. And the mystery is we can extend the heart if we are ready. You don't have to extend the heart to all beings, because there is only one being. And allow the suffering of all beings like a stream flowing into your heart and flowing through the heart and evaporating in the empty sky, just like the thickest thunder clouds evaporate when the sun comes back. And the out-breath can carry the blessings of peace, of healing, of silence, of love, of tenderness, back to all beings. And just take maybe 5 deep, deep breaths where you allow this phenomenon to naturally happen, inviting suffering, breathing out blessings. Very good. And then with the last out breath, to all beings, that deep intention, that deep wish, may all beings be free of suffering. May all beings be free of fear. May all beings know themselves as love and peace. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Yes, beloved friends, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm blessed, and I wish you a very beautiful rest of the day or evening, and we see each other again next Friday, latest. And I will also put this video on YouTube for the friends who don't have Facebook. And it's a blessing for me. Thank you so much. Be well, be at peace, trust your heart, and much love to you.